Okay, so the Save the Ostverse trend event from a few days ago looks like it was unsuccessful, for now. If you don't know what I'm talking about, check this video on screen now, and if you don't know what the Yostverse is at all, then have a look at this video. So this will be a quick video recapping how things played out, what's next, and also some information that came to light about a possible Season 4 of Earth's Mightiest Heroes, as well as some hints as to what a Season 5 might look like. There's timecodes in the description, so if you're only interested in that stuff, you can skip the rest. And before I get into the meat of this video, I do just want to say, I don't want this channel to turn into just updates and news and stuff. The next video I make on Earth's Mightiest Heroes will be a standard video essay or character analysis, because that's the type of content I prefer making, and I'm sure it's what you prefer watching. But given that I promoted this trend event on the channel pretty heavily, and I know lots of you took part, I feel I ought to talk about it a little. Plus, that Season 4 stuff is pretty interesting too. But let's get into what happened with the trend event. First things first, we didn't get the movement trending, so in those terms, it was technically a failure. But that's not the end of the world. It was always a very optimistic goal that this community would be able to break through all the nonsense happening on Twitter during the first attempt to do so. But we did see plenty of accounts tweeting with the hashtags, sharing memes, discussions, and engaging with each other's content. You can check it out for yourself, just search the hashtags on Twitter. Hashtag savetheyostverse, hashtag save Avengers EMH, and hashtag save spectacular Spider-Man were probably the ones that got the most buzz, so plug them in and scroll back a bit and you'll see all the discussion. This was probably the most concentrated social media buzz Earth's Mightiest Heroes has had since its cancellation, and almost definitely the most Wolverine and the X-Men and Spectacular Spider-Man have ever had. And when niche communities try to pull a stunt like this, it is very rare that they manage to accomplish their goals first time round. So there may well be more tries like this in the future, and if there are, I'll be sure to spread the word through community posts and such. But here's why you should be optimistic still. While many of the posts and tweets we saw on the 20th were from fans of these shows who knew about this movement already, there were also people asking what was going on, learning about the drive to resurrect these shows, and in some cases learning about the shows themselves. So if the event was a failure, I think we can call it a minor failure for two reasons. One, it did a really good job of spreading awareness, of widening the net, so to speak, so that more people will be involved in future attempts. And the second small element of success is that even though we didn't go trending, we seem to have reached the people behind the show, and maybe influenced Christopher Yost, that's the head writer for Earth's Mightiest Heroes and the story editor. We may have influenced his decision to throw out some more hypothetical future plans for the show. I'll get back to why I think this is, but for now, let's take a look at these ideas. First though, I think it's worth taking a super fast look at something else Yost tweeted recently. When asked if the show were to be brought back with his involvement, how many seasons he'd be up for doing, Yost replied, "I'd do as many as they let me." I think this is worth noting because it shows that the ideas we're about to talk about aren't just flimsy nothings thrown out to placate a hyped up fanbase, but things that have had genuine thought and care put into them, and things we might actually one day see come to pass. So essentially Yost tweeted that if we ever were to see a fourth season, it would be a season of two halves, and the first would be called Under Siege. Now, these Season 4 plans aren't anywhere near as detailed as the ones we got last year for Season 3, but they are just as intriguing. So what would have happened in Part 1? Well, it likely would have involved the Masters of Evil pretty heavily. Under Siege was a story in the comics which ran over 8 books from way back when, which basically saw Zemo and his team take over the Avengers mansion and ruthlessly decimate the heroes. So we could expect a lot of returning faces from an Earth's Mightiest Heroes adaptation of this story, and probably some good drama with the now redeemed Wonder Man facing his former teammates. What's more, Yost tells us that this would also have been the show's version of the classic storyline Acts of Vengeance, which, despite lending its name to a Season 2 episode, we never really saw. In a nutshell, this story saw a disguised Loki persuade a whole host of supervillains to go beat up superheroes that they hadn't really before, the idea being that Captain America might be able to fight off the Red Skull again and again, but he'd probably have a worse chance against, say, an Iron Man villain. So maybe we would have seen this show's Loki again, but Yost's tweet suggests that this version might have been put together by Doom. So if this ever happens, expect him to be one of Season 4's big bads. The name Under Siege also suggests another more recent comic storyline though, that is Siege, where Norman Osborn and a team of evil Avengers tried to conquer Asgard, which had been relocated to Earth. Given that as of last year's Season 3 pictures, Earth's Mightiest Heroes' Asgard is similarly Earthbound, this seems like the best place to slot an adaptation of this arc. And there's evidence for this, replying to a tweet from The Papa, in which this dude asks, "By Under Siege, do you mean Osborn invade New Asgard?" Yost replies, "No, it'd be Hydra." So seemingly the first half would have been an adaptation of Under Siege, Acts of Vengeance, and Siege. And if I had to guess a general plot outline, I'd say that the Avengers in some way piss off Doom. Maybe it's to do with whatever happens at the conclusion of Season 3, maybe not. If, as I've speculated before, Season 3 were to end with a House of M type finale, it could be that Doom, who in the comics had a pretty sweet gig going on in the House of M reality, is upset by the way things eventually go back to normal, or something like that. In response, Doom, either with a similar role to the one Loki has in Acts of Vengeance in the comic books, or using the Trickster God as a pawn, convenes a squad of supervillains, including the Masters of Evil and the Red Skull, who we last saw as Del Rusk in Season 2. I'd say the first few episodes will see the Masters of Evil go all under siege on half of the team at the Avengers Mansion, and simultaneously Red Skull leading Hydra as a result of Doom's machinations to attack Asgard, and either send Thor into some sort of exile or put him out of action otherwise. From then, we'd see our heroes hunted across the planet, presumably with some fun hero-villain matchups until this arc culminates with Doom's role being revealed and the heroes taking him down, maybe in Latveria. So that's what the first half of Season 4 might look like, but what about the second? Well, Yost tweeted it would be called Infinity Quest, and there's a tweet detailing this a little more, in which he says, "Infinity Quest features the Elders of the Universe as they seek out the Infinity Gems, in a bid to end this universe and become gods in the next, and would scatter the Avengers all across the cosmic Marvel universe." Now, Infinity Quest is a title which has been used a few times in Marvel's past, for instance in a 2017 Guardians of the Galaxy run, and perhaps more notably in a pretty fun Avengers story from like 10 years ago, in which C-list villain The Hood comes pretty close to assembling a full set of Infinity Gems. It's pretty good, you should read it. Pillar of garbage, seal of approval. But yeah, as far as I can remember, there's never been a story named Infinity Quest which bears much resemblance to the one described in Yost's tweet, so we don't have a solid reference point for what this might look like. The Elders of the Universe, though, are characters like the Grandmaster and the Collector, both of whom we've seen in the MCU, and a bunch of others besides, like the Gardener, the Explorer, the Contemplator, there's a whole bunch. And I think it's likely that Season 4 would choose some of these to bring across as villains and not the whole bunch. Gun to my head and I would guess Champion, Collector, Gardener, Grandmaster and Runner, as these have had some run-ins with the Infinity Stones back in the Thanos Quest storyline, but who's to say? What I think we can say about Yost's Infinity Quest is that we'd see some returning faces and some new ones. Almost certainly the Guardians of the Galaxy we saw in Season 2 of the show, complete with the Master Chief Star-Lord that so many of you found deeply uncomfortable, and very possibly Korvac and Karina from the same episode. I'd be willing to bet that some of the Kree Skrull stuff we saw during Season 2, and maybe even Galactus or his heralds, might reappear also. We'd certainly be getting a whole host of new faces as well. I don't think we ever saw Nova or the Nova Corps in the show, and they'd appear for sure. Ego the Living Planet too, I'd expect to see. Yes, I know he's sometimes considered an Elder of the Universe, but sometimes he isn't, so. We'd be seeing Molecule Man and the Beyonder too, and I'll show you why in just a minute. Beyond this, I think it's just a case of guesswork. Pick your favourite cosmic character and it's a coin toss whether they'd appear, except for Thanos. I think at some point in the past, Yost or Josh Fine mentioned that the EMH team decided they weren't gonna do the Infinity Gauntlet story with Thanos and that, you know. Of course, we're just talking about some vague future ideas of Yost's now, so that may well no longer apply. But I think if we do one day see this Season 4, if Thanos appears at all, it would maybe be as an Easter egg or a cameo. Maybe to set up something in Season 5. Speaking of Season 5, we do have some news. There really isn't too much to report on here, but we did see this interaction the other day as well, whereby Yost suggests that part of Season 5 would have been an adaptation of Secret Wars, where this dude called the Beyonder plucks various characters from the Marvel world and pits them to battle against each other in a mystical realm beyond all understanding. This is a very famous story, and there's no way I'd be able to do it justice with a recap here, so if you are interested, it's fairly easy to find. But adapted into the world of Earth's Mightiest Heroes, it would likely see a massive crossover, similar to what we saw with the Series 2 Galactus episode, only bigger in scale and lasting far longer. But that's pretty much all we have for Yost's thoughts on Season 5 currently, and I think speculating any further on a hypothetical Season 5 with only this much information is sort of putting the cart before the horse. So all of this is interesting, but you might ask why I'm suggesting that it's a minor W for the #SaveTheYostverse trend event. Well, two reasons. First, I think it happened in part due to the event, while the ostensible reason for this info drop was that it was the 11th anniversary of the airing of the first whole episode of Earth's Mightiest Heroes, discounting the micro episodes, which would retroactively be compiled into the previous 5. Iron Man is born, the Man in the Anthill, meet Captain America, and so on. But I feel if you are going to drop some info for the community on the show's 11th anniversary, you just do it on the actual anniversary, not sort of a technical one like this, which just happened to be immediately after a massive amount of fan-generated buzz. Add to this Yost's reference in his initial tweet to all the love this show gets after all this time. And I think it's fair to say that we got the first new info for EMH's hypothetical future plans we have in like a year, thanks in part to the recent swell of fan support. And reason 2, if we ever are going to get a third season of Earth's Mightiest Heroes, or Spectacular Spider-Man, or a second season of Wolverine and the X-Men, then it's probably going to be a little while yet before trend events like this recent one can make enough impact on Marvel to be worth taking seriously. And most online communities for long-dead properties struggle to maintain hype long-term for projects like ours, but the fact that we're able to still reach the creators, still get drip-fed hints and plans and ideas that fire up our imagination and make us think, God, how sick would this be? It's like getting extra logs for an old fire. Drops like this are the fuel we'll need to keep our little engine going for the next while. So yeah, our first try wasn't a success, but whose ever is? Stephen King had his first book rejected like 30 times. Van Gogh sold one painting when he was alive. And for the reasons above, I think we've every reason to stay excited about the future of these shows and a potential revival. But that's all I have today. Come back in probably like 2 or 3 days, I think, for a long, detailed and specific video essay on the Spectacular Spider-Man, which lots of you will probably hate. Anyway, it's 2 o'clock as I'm writing this, and I've got to take some parcels to the post office, and I want to stop at Greg's on the way back for lunch. This video isn't sponsored, I'm just hungry. But psst, hey Greg's, if you want to sponsor me, I know most of my audience is international, but I will shill you relentlessly for like a couple of free sausage rolls, so just think about it, okay? Jesus, this was supposed to be a short little update video. Yeah, so that's it everyone, bye. No, but for real, thanks for watching, and let me know what you think of this whole thing in the comments, and hopefully I'll see you soon.